When was the last time that you sat in silence and solitude for, say, 3 minutes and did absolutely nothing? Not watching TV, not reading a book, not scrolling on your phone, just sat there in silence and solitude, being, not doing. Now maybe you're wondering, I'm not sure if I've ever done that. Maybe perhaps you're like me, that when you find yourself in a queue in the supermarket, you unthinkingly reach for the phone. You've got to do something. You can't just wait, pause, do nothing, just be. If any of this resonates with you, then maybe the spiritual practice of silence and solitude is a vital habit in your following Jesus. This is week 8 in our series, Becoming Human, practicing the way of Jesus. We're exploring the spiritual practices that conform our Jesus-centered rule of life, helping us to be with Jesus, become like Jesus, and do what Jesus is doing. This is the way to become truly human, healed and whole. The practice of solitude and silence is an act of retreat. We are surrounded by noise and the wild and crazy clamour of our culture. How can we escape to hear the still, small voice of God? Author John Mark Comer writes, "Solitude is the most foundational of all the practices of Jesus. And solitude has an unspoken but ever-present companion, silence. We find the quiet to find God." Of course, some of us probably have no trouble in being by ourselves. We prefer our own company and find being with others wearying at times. Others of us struggle with solitude and much prefer the presence of people. Healthy spirituality requires both community and solitude. Author Dietrich Bonhoeffer once wrote, "Let him who cannot be alone beware of community. Let him who is not in community beware of being alone." We need community and conversation. We need solitude and silence. And as always, Jesus is our role model in this. Throughout the Gospels, we see Jesus retreating into solitude and silence to be with his heavenly Father for a variety of different reasons. In the early months of Jesus' ministry, Mark chapter 2, verses 32 to 39, revival has come to Nazareth. People are being healed. Demons are flying out of windows. Miracles abound. It's wonderful and amazing. And he's only just begun. What do you do when you're enjoying the beauty of success? Jesus goes to the secret place of silence and solitude with God to receive guidance. In Luke chapter 5, verses 15 to 16, we're told that Jesus has been preaching to thousands with more miracles and healings. It's awesome, but he's exhausted in every way. Where do you go when you're feeling emotionally, spiritually, physically, and relationally drained? Jesus goes to the secret place of silence and solitude with God to receive refreshing. In Matthew chapter 12, verses 14 to 15, Jesus discovers that the religious leaders are planning to kill him. I mean, that's terrifying. Where do you go when you're feeling bullied and intimidated? Jesus goes to the secret place of silence and solitude with God to receive strength. In Matthew chapter 14, verses 12 to 13, Jesus hears the tragic news that his cousin John has been beheaded by Herod. He's horrified and heartbroken. Where do you go when you're contending with overwhelming feelings of grief and loss? Jesus goes to the secret place of silence and solitude with God to receive comfort. In Luke chapter 22, verse 41, we find Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane a few hours before his arrest, torture, and death on the cross. With the knowledge that he's about to bear the sins of the whole of humanity upon his being, he is feeling almost crushed by the weight of fear and anxiety. Where do you go when you're battling with body-crippling worry? Jesus goes to the secret place of silence and solitude to receive courage from God. Our battles with success, exhaustion, intimidation, grief, and anxiety, to mention just a few examples, are first quieted in the place of silence and solitude, where we, like Jesus, can take time out to be with God and find our rest in Him. This is the great invitation of Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. It's in the place of silence and solitude that we attempt to block out the noise and the distractions, the opinions and the agendas of others, and fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. It's in the place of silence and solitude that we make the intentional choice to stop, breathe slowly, deeply, and consciously, as if every in-breath was breathing in the very life of God, and every out-breath was exhaling the woes we carry. We receive and we release in the place of solitude and silence. I find this difficult, but that's not an excuse not to try, not an excuse not to start somewhere. Remember, it's a spiritual practice, and practice makes progress. So let's have a go at this practice of silence and solitude. Let's find a spot and try to give yourself 3 minutes a day of silence and solitude. Close your eyes or use a candle to focus you if it helps. Slowly breathe in and out. Do your best to simply be. If it helps, focus on the phrase, be still and know that I am God. Or maybe turn that into what is called a breath prayer, where you breathe in the word be and out the word still. Be still. Give this a go and consider how you could draw this into your Jesus-centered rule of life on a daily or a weekly basis. You might be amazed what God might do. In 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 12, God reveals himself to the prophet Elijah in a whisper. God often speaks to us in the gentle, tender whisper. Are we willing to slow down, be still, and listen? May Jesus help us all find him afresh in the place of silence and solitude.